Colorado's fentanyl crisis in focus tonight. From Union Station, where transit agencies been asked to do an awful lot to fix a societal problem, to the state capitol, where a bipartisan group today with some real power outlines a plan aimed at saving lives. A fire at a place where Coloradans gather to pray on Sunday. The sprinkler system couldn't put it out. Should we be worried about that, given how often Mile High is packed with people? Aurora's police chief says she's not quitting, contrary to rumors. A plan to help drunk drivers get back behind the wheel faster. Well, that seems odd, until you hear it explained. And we learn whether horseplay in a vehicle violates Colorado's traffic laws. Answers to pressing questions and stuff you never thought about. That is next. Denver's Union Station is at the center of a crime and drug problem. Tonight, the mayor admits they moved it there when they closed down Civic Center Park. If pushing people on the streets from spot to spot worked, well, then Denver would have solved homelessness. If jailing everyone found with drugs would end addiction, well, then America would have won the war on drugs. But instead, Colorado finds itself in need of some more useful and thoughtful approaches to those difficult problems. First to Union Station, where RTD today outlined changes to security and cleanups. It puts a struggling transit agency right at the forefront of solving what's a societal crisis. Here's Nusha Roy.
In the heart of Denver, police have made more than 1,000 arrests between November 1st and Sunday for drugs, trespassing, outstanding warrants, seizing 17 guns, most of the time in the bus terminal and train platforms near Union Station. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock says that it did start getting worse after Civic Center Park was temporarily shut down last fall because of health and environmental risks.
Absolutely. We know that they moved to Union Station, so we're not lost on what happened here. We saw a lot of the same people that we moved here from Civic Center to Union Station.
But it was RTD today.
The question came to me, what are you going to do?
That announced a series of security and cleaning changes because the bus concourse has deteriorated so much, where there's drug use, folks in need of mental health services, and people experiencing homelessness mixed in with people trying to get to places.
The ceilings and walls are also being cleaned. Burned out lamps have been replaced.
RTD, which is obviously focused on transportation, is now trying to help solve safety and public health issues.
Public transportation is interwoven into the fabric of a community. So recognizing there are going to be residual impacts to public transit, we do need to be at the table.
But at the same time, RTD knows it cannot be the one solving these deep-rooted problems.
But I am not a mental health care clinician nor a social worker.
They do have a responsibility for security. They're part of the security puzzle, but the social services is just a very specialized focus.
The union representing RTD employees and RTD itself said that's why it is critical they're pairing up with Denver police, the city, as well as different community groups.
Unless you address those, you typically are just going to move the problem around.
Mayor Hancock said the issue cannot be pinned on one agency to solve, which is why they partnered with police and RTD to come up with their plan to protect the city's transportation hub.
It greatly impacts people's sense of safety and security. And of course, our downtown thrives on people coming and keeping downtown vibrant.
Those partnerships we were just talking about, they become even more important because some of the biggest changes that RTD is talking about, that's going to take a while, right? One of the big ones, setting up paid fare areas so only people have the right fares and tickets will be allowed in. They kept talking about how that's going to be one of the big changes. It's also going to take a while to build that infrastructure and get that up and running. So, in the meantime, it is going to be those partnerships and the beefed up patrols in those areas that are going to be really important.
So, I mean, this is a bus terminal that's at the center of this right now in that underground area. I feel like if this was a different transit hub, if this was the airport, like they would have figured it out like that, you know?
Mayor Hancock actually brought up that exact analogy, saying we have to almost treat it more like DIA, right? If somebody's there who's not traveling, you're going to say, well, what are you doing here, right? He wants to apply that same philosophy to Union Station to hopefully increase the security and make it safer there. And when we talk to RTD today, I mean, like you were mentioning, they have their whole host of their own issues. They've got staffing shortages, things like that. And they're saying they're relying very heavily on these partners. And one of them is going to be the state legislature, asking them to take a look at, resources and services to see where they can step in as well.
It's tough to say, but like if they push people out of Union Station, they're going to be displaced somewhere else. But at least at that point, we'd have a functioning transit hub for the city. You know?
Yeah, and that was the whole point of this. They were saying this is the city's front doorstep, and we have to figure something out. But we heard Hancock talk about it too, that people have been moving around the city.
Anusha, thank you. So drug use is obviously such a big part of this, and fentanyl is killing more Coloradans than any other drug in our state right now. Today, the Democratic governor stood side by side with some Republicans in law enforcement and prosecution to outline a new bipartisan bill that would increase penalties for dealing fentanyl. Our politics guy, Marshall Zellinger, spotted part of that bill that will be of interest to parents because it focuses on fentanyl in schools.
Strengthening the punishment for giving out fentanyl will be debated at the state capitol.
Gives law enforcement the tools they need to crack down on this deadly poison.
But the part they didn't talk about today is a section that allows schools to hand out fentanyl testing strips to make sure drugs are not laced with the deadly opioid.
What should schools be doing? What can they be doing? There's the can or may versus what they must do, and this is one of the can or may be doing.
Dr. Robert Valek at CU's Center for Prescription Drug Abuse Prevention has not seen any data that suggests testing strips at school promote drug use.
It's a harm reduction tool, much like you'd say, hey, we have fire we have fire extinguishers, and we have AEDs, and we have naloxone, and we have fentanyl test strips, and we have all these harm reducing things around to keep people safe and keep them alive.
In my State of the State, I called for stronger criminal penalties, and why today's rollout is so important.
The bill that has the support of Democratic Governor Jared Polis would increase the penalty for distribution of fentanyl.
In my opinion, we already have criminal penalties on the books, and it does nothing to really deter drug use, drug distribution, etc.
As part of the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition, Terry Hurst is not pushing drug use.
Our mission is to eliminate the overuse of the criminal justice system and advance community health and safety.
A report out this week by her group, in conjunction with the Harm Reduction Action Center, suggests more access to naloxone, the drug that reverses the effects of an overdose, and spending additional money on behavioral health.
Because we have failed so miserably in our state to support behavioral health, we have over-relied on the justice system, and with this influx of federal stimulus dollars, it's an opportunity to really start trying to shore up harm reduction, prevention, treatment, recovery support services for people.
The bill already has support from some Republicans at the Capitol, and it's going to pass even without that. So what was telling today is the absence of police chiefs and county sheriffs, the ones who will have to enforce the new laws that they're not fully supportive of because they put out in a statement it does not enhance the crime of possession of fentanyl, something they want to see addressed from a few years ago.
You've got the public health impact, you've got the political impact. We can pretty much just fast forward to November now. This is going to be a big election year issue because there are people outside that building that don't like the fix.
It depends on what office is being run for at that point. But if you're running for like a lawmaker office, what are you going to stand on? That it wasn't strong enough, that it was too weak, I'm going to go in there and try to strengthen it even more? Are you going to be a county sheriff saying, I don't like this, I can't enforce this because it doesn't make a change? Once something passes this year, which it will, it's going to change what you talk about ahead of the November election because the law will have changed by then.
It's interesting. Democrats did not need Republican votes or buy-in to pass something, but they're going to get it to some extent. Marshall, thank you. In case you didn't hear, Mile High caught fire today. Denver would have formed a 1,000-person bucket brigade to put out the fire at the stadium if needed, but turns out it just took some firefighters. Yet that fire in the seats on the third level, it was still more than the sprinkler system could handle. Mark Salinger's out there for us, and Mark, quite the hike for firefighters to get up there as so many people in the city turned to see a plume of smoke over the stadium.
Yeah, Kyle, the firefighters are all pretty much gone right now at this point, but the cleanup inside the stadium continues as the fire destroyed several dozen seats and a couple of suites inside that stadium. Now, we don't know yet how the fire started, but we do know that where the fire took place made it pretty challenging for those firefighters. We want to show you here where in the stadium that took place. The fire started in the suite area on level 4 before it spread down into level 3. Denver Fire says at least 1,000 square feet worth of seats caught fire on that third level. Now, the seats are made of a material that burns at a very high temperature and can be difficult to put out. Firefighters had to battle the flames by hand because most of the seats that caught fire were outside the range of where the fire sprinkler system reaches. The sprinklers can't help put out a fire in the seats out in the open air of the stadium away from the overhangs. We're told the sprinklers did activate in the suite area that caught fire.
There were sprinklers in the suite area that were affected immediately by the fire. In the seated areas on the third level that are diagonal, as we've all been in stadiums, the fire just fed the next level and the next level, and it really compounded the whole situation. But we do not have sprinklers in the open seated areas.
Now, in a stadium board of directors management meeting in November of last year, several $1 million were allocated for capital improvement projects to the stadium. About $1 million of that money was going to be used for upgrades to the fire alarm system that we don't yet know at this point what those upgrades would entail. Kyle?
Well, something that we're going to be talking about because a whole lot of people frequent the building. Mark, thank you.
And this is what we perceive as one more effort to undermine her authority as chief.
Aurora's police chief has a lot of enemies. She thinks one of them planted yesterday's story that she's quitting. A bipartisan bill would have drunk drivers get back behind the wheel of a car sooner, which makes absolutely no sense until you hear him explain it. And speaking of poor driving decisions, an unstable situation. Next. If Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson was watching the local TV news last night, she learned that she was resigning. Today, her lawyer insists that story on another media outlet is false and that it's just city leaders trying to force out the chief. She actually was not watching the news last night because Chief Wilson's attorney says she's headed for vacation in Mexico. Attorney Paula Greisen says that Wilson had a Zoom call Monday with the city manager in which the city manager told the chief that they needed to come up with an exit strategy for her departure from the city of Aurora. Chief Wilson reportedly said she would not resign. Her attorney says the timing of all this is no coincidence.
What has happened is that there are now new voices on the city council for Aurora who have, since they've been voted into office, have waged a campaign to criticize her, to undermine her. They have called her and her deputy chief trash, literally trash, in public, and have made it very clear that their agenda is to push Chief Wilson and her deputy out of office.
Conservatives on Aurora City Council might be able to get rid of Chief Wilson, but they can't get rid of the consent decree. That is a court-ordered settlement between the city and the Colorado Attorney General's office about reforming APD. It came after the death of Elijah McClain, who died several days after he was stopped by police in 2019. His death sparked an investigation into APD's practices that found they had engaged in racially biased policing, including a disproportionate use of force when arresting minorities. In Chief Wilson's 2 years in office, she's gone after officers she says are not following the rules, firing a number of officers for misconduct, including the head of one of the police unions.
Sunshine today, not as windy. Temperatures 10 degrees warmer than average. 68 in Denver, 70 Greeley and Fort Collins. We could go warmer tomorrow. A weak weather system is crossing northeastern Colorado, more of a wind shift than anything else. But as that weak front moves through, a stray shower is certainly possible overnight around Sterling, Ray, and out toward the North Platte area. Fair skies, light winds will get us into the mid-30s overnight, where we start Friday morning. Temperatures soar into the mid-60s tomorrow and then into record territory. We have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, highs 75 to 80 degrees. Rain showers and cooler weather Tuesday, and that rain could mix with snow briefly early on Wednesday morning. Enjoy the warm weather trend. It's been a while.
Two brothers who were paralyzed in separate shootings years ago are going to be able to keep the house that they've called home for decades. It's because of help from the community. We met the Salazar brothers back in January. Pat was shot in the head in 1993. His brother was shot a year earlier, and they've both used wheelchairs since then. Their house on Humboldt Street in Denver has really been the center of their lives since. Their parents took out a reverse mortgage on the home to pay for the brothers' care. When both those parents passed away, the reverse mortgage came due. The brothers were in danger of losing their home. The community stepped up in an enormous way. We're told that the loan has been paid off thanks to more than 400 donations, from $5 to one that was more than $100,000. A person close to the family asked us to pass along the brother's sincere gratitude to everyone who helped. A bipartisan group of state legislators wants to get drunk drivers driving again more quickly. Well, what kind of sense does that make? Actually, quite a bit when you hear it. And the guy in the back, he can't drive even if he's sober. A quirky lesson in Colorado traffic law from Mr. Ed there. Next. There's a bipartisan effort at the state capitol right now to get drunk drivers back behind the wheel more quickly in the name of public safety. You got to hear this out. So under current state law, somebody who's convicted of an alcohol-related driving offense who loses their license has to wait 1 month before they can apply to get one of those interlock restricted licenses. Interlock, like the breathalyzer that's hooked up to your car. Driver can't start the car until they blow into it to prove they haven't been drinking. Driver has to keep blowing into it in order to intermittently monitor their blood alcohol level. So you have to wait a month to get that special license after your conviction. This bipartisan bill would allow for drivers convicted of a DUI to apply for the interlock license immediately. Democratic Senator Chris Hansen says they know people are just driving again before the 30 days is up, so they might as well make sure they're sober.
Most folks need to drive to work. They need to drive to drop their kids off at school. And if they have a drinking and driving problem or an intoxication under the influence driving problem, we want to do our best to make sure that that's not happening when they get behind the wheel, because we know they're going to get behind the wheel anyway. And so it's really trying to shorten that and focus in on the problem instead of creating this long wait period.
I feel like his sport coat is a little much. It's not professional. CDC says that their studies show ignition interlock devices reduce repeat drunk driving offenses by 2/3 compared to just taking somebody's license. The systems, of course, track when somebody tries to drink and drive and gets stopped by the interlock. So we can say with good confidence that in the year 2020, interlock devices stopped more than 15,000 drunk driving attempts in Colorado. Cramming a horse into the back of your work van? That's not how you Colorado. But it is apparently totally legal. I would not have guessed that you could transport My Little Pony or Your Little Pony in the back of a work van, but that is what we learned after our viewer Carl saw this at E470 and I-76 yesterday. But while we might look at that and say nay, the law says it's fine. Colorado State Patrol says there is nothing in state law that requires that farm animals be transported in any specific kind of vehicle or trailer. I'm laughing to myself because I'm picturing something in a convertible. It's a sign of a good boy and a sign of another boy who's not so good. That and your feedback next. It's a sign that it's not the big dog you need to be aware of, it's the little one that's pure trouble. Lois sent us a sign she saw outside a home in Longmont. Pete, it says a good boy, but as the sign notes, Ferdy's kind of a jerk. The illustration on Ferdy even has little devil horns on the dog. My favorite part is the message down at the bottom, that Ferdy does not represent the views of this house. We are sorry. Lots of people know a Ferdy in this world. Connie writes in tonight about the Aurora police chief, saying Chief Wilson has an incredibly difficult job. Remember, she inherited a police force that was a mess and needed a lot of cleanup. We should be clear on that. Police Chief Wilson was not in charge when Elijah McLean died. That happened afterwards. Richard noted that our weather forecast called for winds tomorrow between 10 and 215 miles per hour. They will be.